We are entering into the second last session of our FDP. So this is this lecture is arranged from industry. We have the honorable speaker of today, Dr. Nandakumar. He is well known in the field of electric vehicle, and we have a lot of collaborative activities with Robert Bosch Coimbatore with Dr. Nandakumar sir as well as his team headed by Dr. Pradeep Kumar. So it is my immense pleasure to introduce the speaker of this lecture, Dr. Nandakumar. Has done his ME with MIT Anna University and PhD from IIT Madras in the domain of regenerative braking and electric vehicle dynamics. He has presented and published research papers at premium conferences and reputed international journals. He is the member in professional engineering bodies like SCAE, Institute of Engineers India, ASME. He is expert in automotive domain with 20 plus years of experience in systems like electric powertrain, brakes, and vehicle dynamics of both conventional and electric hybrid vehicles. The proficiency including benchmarking, system design and analysis, product design, testing and validation. So my dear participants, I request you to make use of this session. It's very hard to get industrial experts like Dr. Nandakumar sir, especially who is working exclusively in electric vehicle. I have attended several of his sessions at NIT Calicut. I think some questions we have seen in the previous sessions. I think sir definitely know most especially related to drive cycle and other design of vehicle dynamics, etc. So please make use of his session. With this brief introduction, I wholeheartedly invite Dr. Nandakumar sir to deliver the lecture. Nandakumar sir, welcome you, sir. So please go ahead.
Thank you, Kumarvel, for the introduction. Good morning, everyone. Really, it is a pleasure again to present another session on the related to EVs. Okay, so let us start the session. I will share my desktop. Yeah, hope you could be able to see the screen. Kumarvel, is my desktop is visible?
It is visible, sir.
Okay. I think we can start then. Okay, thanks once again. So we will start. So today's session, primarily I will focus more on the powertrain component sizing. So this is the topic I was asked to discuss today. So if the agenda goes like this, I don't want to jump suddenly into the component sizing. So let us start with a few introductions of the powertrain, electric powertrain, and the standard configurations. Then we will move to the sizing models, methods. And I also would like to take a case study with the numerical models. And we also see what are all the other related accessories, typically more specific for an EV. So this is how the agenda goes. Okay, so from the first title introduction part, so this I will quickly cover a few slides, then we will move forward. So as we all know that we are talking about EV, but yeah, so as a powertrain, electric powertrain, there are different topologies or configurations available, which combined either it will act as a pure power source or it can combine with an ICE to give a different titles. So in an electric powertrain, if it is a pure electric powertrain, then we call it an BEV, that is battery electric vehicle. And if we have an IC engine to charge the battery, then that is called as a range extender. And whereas if the drive is coupled with both the motor and an ICE, then the type of vehicles are classified as hybrid. So under hybrid, again we have certain configurations like series parallel, axial split. So there are a lot of types basically. For with an electric powertrain, any vehicle can be designed. So since we are focusing more on an pure EV, so we will touch upon this battery electric vehicle part today, because every type has its own unique advantage, features, sizing variations. So it's all wide varieties. But we will today focus only on an battery electric vehicle. How do we size the components? Okay, so before going again to an EV, there is an introduction slide, background slide. So there are standard functions like with an electric powertrain, what we can achieve. That is start, stop, regen braking, torque support, electric drive, grid charging. So if you map these standard function across these different powertrain vehicles, so there are certain functions mapped or certain functions doesn't fit. See, for example, the torque support is not a standard function in a battery electric vehicle or a range extender. It means that there is no another power source or power plant to support the driveline. Similarly, e-driving is not a standard function with a mild hybrid, and grid charging is not a standard function with a mild hybrid and strong hybrid, whereas grid charging is a standard function in an EV, because a EV and a battery electric vehicle, the energy comes only from a external source. Okay, so yeah. So let us see this simple layout of a pure electric vehicle. Again, I'm saying I'm only talking about a pure electric vehicle. So if you say a pure electric vehicle, the primary source is an electric drive, or you can call it as an electric axle, whatever the way it is. So it has a motor coupled with a single gear transmission. There is a gearbox, and the output of the gearbox drives the wheels. And this electric motor is typically, it could be a permanent magnet type or induction type, that depends upon the various factors. And this motor, in fact, it will be an AC motor, and so that gets powered by an inverter. So an inverter is a product which take a DC source from a high voltage battery and then convert into an AC and then drives the motor. And a HV battery, yeah, it is a standard product in a vehicle, and that is get charged by a charger, an onboard charger, and which gets an external socket connects to the grid. So this constitutes the powertrain. But for an electric vehicle, there is also another product which is more common. That is the cooperative regenerative braking system. Because in electric vehicle, some part of the braking function is done by the powertrain itself. So which is not the case in an ICE drive, whereas in an EV, the powertrain does some part of the braking. So it means that both the conventional brake and this powertrain brake combined together in a applied over the vehicle. Okay, so now we will. So these are the major components of what we are going to discuss now. How do we, for any application? Okay, if we go closer to powertrain, so we can see this chart converts this AC to DC, and then that charges the HV battery, and from that HV load goes to an inverter, and converts this DC to AC, and then the AC. And output of the motor has a standard gearbox, which will be typically a single stage gearbox that drives the wheels. And there is also another component called a DC-DC, which charges the LV battery. So when we talk about the component sizing, we should derive the specification for all these products. like what should be the motor rating, what should be the motor peak torque, peak RPM, and what should be the transmission ratio, and what is the battery capacity we need. And inverter design, inverter specification is almost come align with the motor specification, because the inverter and motor has to work together. So whatever the peak current and peak voltage that demands the motor, the same thing has to be aligned by the inverter. And DC-DC, yeah, it is a product which supports this LV battery totally. So again, if you see in an EV, there are various LV loads that we will see in the last this presentation. So typically a DC-DC is a key product which will support all these LV loads. Okay. Okay, so before this is the standard drive, I mean that standard layout for a typical EV. But even in a BEV, I mean that a battery electric vehicle, it has a different topologies or a different configurations or a different method in which an OE can build the vehicle. Just let us see that it has its own unique advantages, limitations, etc. So you see the different topology. Yeah. See, this is the single speed, single emission, what we discussed so far. You'll have one battery, one inverter, and one emission, and one gearbox that drives either one of the axles, that is the front axle or a rear axle. So this is the standard configuration. So in this case, so whatever the total torque demand or the total power demand for the vehicle has to be supported by one machine. Right? And there are a configuration, that is, you see the top right, 2-speed single emission. It means that you will have two gearbox. So in the first case, there will be a gearbox, but it has a single gear transmission. So there is no need to shift the gear. So the gear will have a constant ratio that coupled to the e-machine, and always this ratio goes to the wheel. Whereas in the second case, we will have two gear ratios. So the vehicle user can shift the gear. So in this case, when you have two gears, the advantage is that the e-machine peak torque could be reduced to some extent. So once you reduce the peak torque, the current demand from the inverter and the battery also reduces. So that in fact reduces the losses, basically the heat losses and other stuffs, and it also reduces your cable harness design, everything. So typically a gearbox does a lot of job in the electrical architecture. So if you have two gearbox, yeah, the machine, you can choose a different power rating machine, or a different power could be same, the different peak torque rating could be different. So all your electrical specifications can be reduced to some extent. And yeah, there is another configuration called single speed 2E machine, that is bottom left. So this is another configuration common in certain vehicle application. So it means that you will have two emission, each machine will drive each axles. So in this case, suppose the net power demand is 50, and each machine will have 25 kilowatt power, and they separately drives the wheels. So here the advantage is that all four wheels will be driven. So you will have good traction on the tire road interface. The vehicle will have good drivability. And at the same time, because the peak torque and the peak torque demand is less, again the peak current and harness and inverter design, inverter selection, basically everything can be reduced to half. And yeah, another configuration is also there. That is the single speed e-machine with the 2-speed single e-machine. Yeah, that is means that in the front you'll have one gearbox, in the rear you'll have 2 gearbox. So each has its own uniqueness, the advantages, but at the same time there are limitations on the cost. So an OE will choose different type, any type based on the vehicle application. Suppose a vehicle is designed for a race car. Let us assume that OE design a, a Formula One EV car. So then typically they will look for a something like this. That is the last one, bottom right. So both the wheel will get a good traction and yeah, and you have separate e-machine, so you'll get good drive. So depending on the application and the cost, the OEs will choose these topologies. But now today in our further discussions, we are not going into all these things. We will only focus on the single speed, single e-machine, because that is quite easy for understand in the short time. Okay, so now we are looking for a simple and EV powertrain configuration which has one machine, one gearbox, one differential, one inverter, etc. Okay, now in this background, now let us see how component sizing models and methods get designed. It starts always from the what is the drive specification. Typically, what is the performance requirements of a vehicle and which vehicle we are talking about. So these are the two key things. That is an input for to start the sizing part, and in what drive cycle or in what drive pattern it has to be driven. That is the second part, and that will lead to an estimation of this drive performance. It means that what should be my peak torque or RPM requirement to meet this drive specification. And from there, we will derive the motor and battery sizing. That is the standard method what we follow. So if you see this in general practice, we have two modeling approach. One is the backward modeling approach, and the other one is the forward modeling approach. But it typically to start any any kind of first level of sizing, we will start with this backward modeling approach. Which means that the environment is defined. It means that what is the speed profile and which vehicle we are talking about. So that will derive basically the torque requirement for the transmission, and from there we will derive the torque demand for the motor, and from there we will derive the power or the power of the battery or a power of a sometime engine. It means that for an if it is an hybrid, otherwise this block will not be there. So it will only leads to the power of the battery. This is the backward modeling, and in forward modeling it is the same. So from the almost it is a different method, but it has a closed loop kind of an correction model is there. So if you have a drive environment, from there we will demand the driver model. That is what the throttle demand has to goes to the motor. And, that will go back to the transmission, and then that goes to the wheel. And based on the vehicle dynamics model, again there will be a correction will happen in this desired speed, so that finally the vehicle will follow this same speed profile. So if this is the requirement, and to meet this requirement, we will derive what should be the motor and the transmission sizings. So these are the two standard approach, but yeah. So we will see one case study using this backward modeling approach. I will refer this model in that case study. Okay, so yeah, as I just mentioned, so there are market requirements. So from what is the use case, like what should be the driving performance and cycle efficiency, drive cycle lifetime. So these things will derive to it will be an input to a vehicle model. So vehicle model could be different for different types. You have different vehicle models, SUV, medium, compact, etc. That when you feed this use cases to a vehicle model, that will derive what should be the torque speed requirement from the powertrain perspective. So what should be the transmission torque and what should be the e-drive torque, and that will derive what should be the battery peak current or battery power. And in fact, the gear ratios, etc., will be part of this. And okay, from this powertrain, we can derive into the UDC. What is the voltage, current, RPM, etc., will be derived. So there we will choose the right sizing components. What should be the inverter rating, DC rating, E-machine, whether it is an permanent magnet machine kind of a thing, and what is the control methodology and sensor strategy, etc. So it is a kind of a flow in deriving these components. But beyond this, there are other factors in the quality parameters, like in selecting in sizing or selecting the component. So what, like typically what efficiency part or the size. See, typically we can choose a 20 kilowatt induction machine or a 20 kilowatt permanent magnet machine. So that selection of the components is different subject altogether, but the sizing remains same, right? So but again, it has a connect. So if the cost is a limiting factor, then if we are going for an induction machine, so the induction machine has an efficiency part, then that efficiency needs to be considered in deriving this model. So again, that has to be inbuilt into this so that the net peak power or peak torque will consider those efficiencies part. So there are various things. So what we discussing currently is for a straightforward approach. That is, if you have a market requirements, means you have a use cases, you have a vehicle model. From there, we'll derive what will be the sizing of this component. But again, will that stop there? No, because the sizing means let us assume that the sizing says that I need 30 kilowatt machine. But again, 30 kilowatt machine with what efficiency or what type, so those things will keep change. So depending on the selection, again, the 30 can increase to 32 kilowatt. So those factors will keep adding, and finally we will optimize a certain rating value. So let us see, we will explain this, understand this completely in that case study. Okay, see, this is a typical powertrain model. But for a power electronics and e-machine, that is a closed loop model, what we use in our study purpose. But here there are challenges. So it's not a straightforward and easy thing to do. So typically to get good predictive results on the using this model, we need a detailed plant model with a complete complex calculation is required. So for getting a closer values, and moreover, there are various models which is not well defined. It's all based on data driven, like temperature and sensors and signal errors. So these are all data driven models. So which need a lot of calibration effort, and sometimes we also need to do an expensive testing to validate this model. And there are a lot of strategies needs to be compensated to address these aging factors, errors in the signals. So like this, even though we have a standard model, either we use different tools, MATLAB or GT, but to build a model closer to the vehicle is again has a lot of challenges. Another thing, we use this kind of model for lithium-ion battery. Battery chemical kinetics is used, and again this is a closed loop model to verify the battery performance against the real time. So there are different SOC estimation methods which is listed here, and also H estimation is also done using these models. Okay, it is now so far we are only talking about the typical power rating of the motor, inverter, battery, etc. But there are other factors which could influence all these ratings in the sizings. That is typically a thermal model. So the ideal condition what we choose is that the temperature of the machine is maintained within the threshold. But in actual case, normally when the vehicle undergoing a typical drive cycle, the temperature of the machine will overshoot and then the derating will happen. So such things needs to be incorporated into the model itself. So that will bring a closer or an efficient sizing infrastructure. So there are various other factors like dynamics model is there, and temperature, chemistry. So all these things has to be integrated or clubbed together to get a real closer efficient components specification. Fine. So far we see that there are models, standard models available to do to build an EV powertrain, electric powertrain, and then run across this model against a standard drive cycle, and then derive the sizing. But that is a one way. That is a backward estimation model method. But it has its own challenges. It is not a straightforward or an ideal case. We need to consider various other things like thermal dynamics, chemistry, etc. into this model to make this model more robust and closer to the real time. So this is the high level guideline what we have. Using a standard model to derive the sizing of the components. But now let us see one case study by using our backward model approach. So the backward model approach, what it says is that you are given a vehicle parameter and we are given a vehicle performance requirement. Use these two information and use the vehicle longitudinal or dynamics principle and then derive the power ratings or ratings of the powertrain. Let us see that. See, in this case, I have considered one passenger bus, okay, to estimate this power rating. So you see this is a kind of a force diagram. What are the different forces acts over the wheels or on the body of the buses while on road? So the net forces acting on this bus or a vehicle is like this. So okay, this is a flat road, and this is the forces act when it goes in a uphill. Okay, because primarily the powertrain has to come across this force. That is, then only the vehicle will move on a desired speed. So again, we use the basic Newton's second law, that is dV by dt, F by m, delta sigma F by m. That is the net tractive force divided by the mass. So the net tractive force is nothing, net force is nothing but the total tractive subtracted by the total resistance. So if we see this This FRF and FRR are the resistant force, FA is the resistance force, and M into A is the acceleration force. So these are the resistive force, and the drive force has to be overcome all this resistive force. That is the basic requirement. And this drive force finally multiplied by this tire, this drive force multiplied by this tire radius will give the torque. Let us see the same case in an uphill. So the additional force in an uphill is the gradient part, in which case the gravity force which is coming acting on the wheel will be splitted by this gradient part. That is mg sine will go aligned across the vehicle, and mg cos I will act normal to the vehicle. So this, if you see this traction force has to overcome this mg sine psi. There is an additional force acting on the powertrain finally. So yeah, coming to this power model. So power at the wheels is nothing but the net tractive force into the vehicle velocity. And the motor power rating is nothing but power at the wheels by the transmission efficiency. So this equation, whatever you see, this mgfr plus of everything is the net tractive force, and that multiplied the vehicle velocity and divided by this efficiency will give the power. See, let us take the three conditions. One is maximum speed, and another is grade, and another is acceleration. These are the three driving conditions typically the vehicle is power defined for. So in the maximum speed, that is, a vehicle is cruising on a constant speed on a flat road. This is the power that demanded from the power plant. And similarly, the torque model, the net force multiplied by this tire radius. This is the torque at the wheel, and the torque at the motor is nothing but the torque at the wheel divided by the transmission ratio. That is, the IG is the complete transmission ratio. That ratio involves your gearbox and the differential, both put together. So these are all things in sizing we will choose. What should be the IG? So a variation in the IG will result into the variation in the motor power, motor peak torque, and that will define the peak current, the peak current requirement also. And the speed model is like this. So again, that is depends upon the vehicle speed. So what should be the vehicle max speed is designed for? Accordingly, the motor speed rating will change. So the motor speed is nothing but the vehicle maximum speed by the transmission ratio divided by the wheel radius. So it depends on these three parameters. So in this case, since we choose the passenger bus, so these are the typical vehicle parameter. So a vehicle with a mass of 12 ton with a frontal area this much, all these things has to achieve this performance. Max speed 90, gradability it has to climb 16 degree, and the gradability speed is 10 kmph. Acceleration speed 0 to 13 seconds, and pure electric range it has to achieve 80 km. This is a simple parameter to selected now to explain how this sizing comes. And here a single speed gearbox with 3 is considered. So, and a differential ratio of 5.57 is considered. So total gear ratio is 16.7, the product of these two. So when these values, basically these values inbuilt into these equations, so we will come up with this outcome. That is when the vehicle goes in a 90 kmph constant speed, the net power rating at by the power plant is 86 kilowatt, whereas the torque, if you see the torque ratio, I have two torque ratio. If it is IG is 16.37, then the maximum torque, the torque at this point will be 107, and if it is 22 point, torque will be 877. And similarly, the speed will be vary. And at the same time, the vehicle has to undergo a grade of 16 degree. In that case, the power demand is very high and the torque demand is very high. And the vehicle has to also achieve 1.06 acceleration power. So that comes to 139. So out of this, so since 139 is the maximum peak power demand from by the vehicle, so this will be the selected for choosing the component. So it means that a motor fitted for directly in a single drive, single gear, single motor configuration, it should have 139 or 140 kilowatt power rating. And the constant motor power should be 105 kilowatt. Then the vehicle can able to achieve this gradability of 16 degree. That is the understanding. And that motor, if we are choosing that motor, and if we have 16.71 transmission ratio, the motor can have 886 as the peak power, and RPM, and 1182 will be the RPM for the other ratio. So this is the power rating of the machine, and similarly the same power rating will be applicable for the inverter, because inverter rating has to be aligned with the motor that we mentioned in the initial case. Whereas a battery, if you talk about the battery, it again that depends upon what should be the range, the energy required to get a pure range. In this case, we consider a range of 80 kilometer. The vehicle has to achieve a range with at a speed of 60 kmph on a flat road. It means that using that first model, that is on a flat road model, we will get this power. That is the P max speed is the power, and that power protected by multiplied by this the time. So the battery has to discharge that power for a time period of maybe you will derive to 80 by or 60 by 80. That is 6 by 8 hour. So that comes to 118 kilowatt hour. And this with a 300 volt operating voltage. So the peak current demand for acceleration is 579 ampere. And continuous current comes to 207 ampere. So the capacity for a peak power and a capacity for constant speed also will vary depending on these conditions. It's all this is a simple case, very simple case study with which explains this sizing part using a numerical model. But whatever we discussed earlier is a MATLAB model or a GT model. How do we derive this same value? But in a typical sizing exercise, it is not only these three parameters, that is max speed, gradability, or acceleration. They also will undergo different drive cycles. So an OE will run across the parameter and model across real-time CT drive cycle or a standard drive cycle, and then let's see. So if you run across this size cycle, then these values could change. It may increase or may come down. So the highest of these two set of data will be selected for sizing the component. This is the procedure, basically the basic procedure what we do. Okay. So beyond that, okay, we have another component is the charger part, OBD charger. So the charger typically, again, that has to be aligned with this battery. So there are two types. One is the normal charger and another we call as fast charger. So a normal charger is a standard product which will deliver a constant current, a low current for a long time. Again, there should be a synchronizing between the battery and the charger, where a charger will supply a certain current and battery should have the potential to receive it. Because certain batteries may not be designed to take the fast charging. So even if you have a fast charger, certain batteries may not be designed to take that. Even this we would have seen in our mobile usage. So certain mobiles chargers are not batteries are not designed to take the fast charging current. So again, in this case, there should be a alignment or a synchronize between these two products. But otherwise, battery is typically designed for capacity and voltage network, and this the peak current and other parameters which we are discussing now. Okay, before going into even to accessories, let us come back to this part, that is the thing we can touch on part here. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So this, I think we discussed how do we select this motor power, motor torque, and motor speed conditions and this transmission to meet a certain vehicle parameter that meet a certain drive performance. Okay. And beyond that, there are certain components in the DC 12 volt battery. You will see. So what is a DC load and how it meets. But here, what I want to say is that initially I mentioned that the powertrain also does a braking function. So yeah. So currently, this motor characteristics, typically any motor characteristics, torque speed characteristics will be a duplicate part. So it can generate the same torque or a current in a negative side. So the same braking force could be possible. But it means that the current will flow in the reverse direction. So it means that even in the sizing of this component, the regenerative energy or the regenerative brake will also be considered. See, sometimes even there are new vehicles coming up, which they don't use even this normal brake in the drive axles. They use only the powertrain brakes. So it means that they don't use an hydraulic system or hydraulic brakes in the driven wheels. So in such cases, the electric drive or an electric axle should be sized or selected to meet that torque demand. So that is another criteria in selecting this part. And that power, that is the braking power. What we so far discussed is the drive power. There is a braking power So braking power typically will be high. Okay. Why I am stressing this point is that if you see this value, which one? Acceleration. So there will be an acceleration. So 0 to 50 in 13 seconds. This is okay for a passenger bus on a drive part. But 50 to 0 in 13 seconds is not okay on braking part. So typically it will be 4 seconds or 5 seconds. It means that your braking torque or braking power should be at least 3 times higher than the drive power. So if a vehicle is designed or defined for using the powertrain as a brakes, then the motor rating even it could be little bit higher if they want to achieve the braking through powertrain. This is what the connect between the brake deceleration time and the drivetrain components. So this is a new dimension of looking into the powertrain. Okay. Otherwise, for drive function, this whatever we discussed, these models are all straightforward. But if you want to consider this braking function also into this drivetrain, then we need to see which is taking the higher power, either the brake power or a drive power. Fine. Now let us see a little bit about the other systems. So see, powertrain, brakes, and there are other systems. See, typically in an electric vehicle, these systems, these auxiliary systems like brakes, steering, air conditioner, or thermal system. In a normal vehicle, all these systems are driven by the ICE, right? Or the brake booster pump is driven by the ICE. Steering pump is driven by the ICE. Air condition pump is driven by the ICE. Thermal radiator, everything is driven by the ICE. The moment you switch off the ICE, all these systems will stop functioning. So, but in an electric vehicle, since the ICE is not there, and even the vehicle at zero speed, these systems should work. So, to meet that criteria, in an EV, all these auxiliary systems are converted into an LV electric drive. It means that you'll have an electric vacuum pump, electric power steering, an electric air conditioner inverter, and an electrical pump to drive the thermal system. So because of this, what happened? If you see the loads, the accessories loads in an EV, it is like this. So you have controllers. There are many controllers to consume the accessories loads. And beyond that, you have a lot of electrical drives to drive the LV systems. So whatever we see, the picture depicted on controllers, the different controllers to activate the different functions. And moreover to this, we also have an LV drives. So because of this reason, your DC-DC converter and this 12-volt battery capacity has to be chosen properly. So not in the same case for a normal car. So the DC-DC power typically comes to a 2.4 to 3 kilowatt rating because it has to support this much power on a full load condition. And sometimes the AC, as we mentioned, the AC compressors are also driven by this a parallel network. So in that case, then this inverter has to be chosen appropriately based on the compressor load, or otherwise the drive inverter also does this function. So in a latest or a recent product model, we are planning to, there are methods to bring this function integrated into this main inverter. So beyond this LV drives, there are other controllers, as I mentioned. There are various controllers in a vehicle which needs high electric loads. So that's why we say that the DC-DC converter power rating will be in the order of 2.4 to 3 kilowatt. Okay. And yeah, so but typically today we have a lot of tools to explore all this component sizing in a very faster way. So there are standard models in the libraries of MATLAB, GT, everywhere, and we can pick and place and build the model and run across a drive cycle and then see what is the rating. But if you see what happens back end of the model, that is more important. Otherwise, we will simply depend on the model output. So the back end of the model, whatever happens is these longitudinal dynamics equations. If we have an opportunity to go closer to these model equations, we can see the same thing. So all MATLAB and GTs are built based on these vehicle dynamic principles. Okay. So coming back to this topology, so far what we discussed is a single speed, single machine. So in our case, we saw that a passenger bus designed for this configuration may need 106 kilowatt power. And if you have 2-gear ratio, then it will be different. Or if you have a different single gear ratio, the power rating also getting changed. Suppose if the same vehicle performance and drive requirement is designed with a single speed 2E machine, then the machine can be split. See, the advantage of having 2 E machine is totally different. So typically in an acceleration or a gradability, we need more power. But whereas in a normal cruise speed or a flat road speed, the power rating will be less. So that case, what they do, they use both the machines for acceleration, and a single machine is used for a flat road application. But the longitudinal principle, whatever we calculated or estimated, is common, irrespective of which topology we use. That is depending on the vehicle parameter and the drive performance. But how we are going to define the powertrain or a driveline is a different story. So that based on these 4 topologies, the ratings of the machine, inverter, everything will change. So even beyond these 4, there are also one more model for each wheel driven by a single machine, separate machine. That is also there. So it means that then you are breaking down the net power into 4 and then separating the power to each wheel separately. So in that case, the sizing and selection will be totally different. So the key message what here is the sizing or the power rating or the torque rating what we derive using a model or a longitudinal equations depends on the vehicle parameter and drive performance. But when you come to a topology selection, based on the topology, again that will get breakdown or split up. That is the key thing I want to convey here. Okay. Okay, I think this is an overview I want to share now. Maybe now I have another 25-30 minutes we can open for questions, so we can discuss more. Thanks.
Sir, good afternoon, sir. My name is Madhuri. Sir, can you just go back to the topologies that you showed just now, sir? Just this current slide that you showed.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So thank you. Sir, can you just, you were saying, no, sir, when we, the 2E machine and single E machine, can you just repeat that one, sir? That is the necessity of a single E machine and a 2E machine model. Can you just repeat that part just once, sir?
Yeah, you can do that. See, if you see from the vehicle perspective, there is a vehicle parameter and there is a drive requirement. Okay, so a vehicle to meet the driving requirement, the wheel power and the wheel torque remain same. The net wheel power what the vehicle needs at the wheel remains same. But if we use a single E machine, the single E machine has to be selected, or it has to be designed to meet that power. But if we have two E machine, then the advantage is that we can break down the net power into two, and then each machine can deliver the partial power or a partial torque. The advantage of having a two single machine is that the machine rating will be down, and then the electrical network, that is basically the current rating of the inverter or a current rating of the cable harness selection, the thickness of the wire, and the corresponding losses will be less. See, for example, let us say that a single E machine, the wheel torque, let us come to our same case. Numerically, if you can understand it, it will be easy. See, I will come to this result part. See, this passenger bus, it says that a torque, assume a case at constant speed, the vehicle is driven at 90 km/h constant speed. I'm using a 16.71 gear ratio. The machine has to deliver 103 Newton meter as a constant torque. 102 Newton meter, let us say corresponding current rating is 100 amps. Okay. So this is the net torque needed at the wheel. Okay, that net torque can come in two wheels or four wheels using a single machine or a double machine. That is immaterial. But the net torque should be 103. So if I want to achieve this net torque of 103 using a single E machine, then the E machine current will be 100 amps in this inverter, battery, everything. So if I break that 103 net torque into 2E machine, it means that I need a 1.5 Newton meter from each machine. Then the corresponding inverter peak current rating also will drop. It could be 50 amps each. The advantage of having this is the inverter sizing will be less, losses will be less, and at the same time, all the four wheels get a torque, the drive torque on the wheels.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. I understood that, sir. Sir, so this is this you have described for a pure like a EV, no, sir. This is for like an EV machine, no, sir. So EV vehicle. That is. But when we come to HEVs, sir. So when we are talking about HEVs, do we have the same concept? Can we extend this to the same to HEVs also?
Yeah. See, this sizing part. See, up to here, if you see this numerical model.
Yes, sir.
See, this is the vehicle parameter. Okay.
Yes, sir.
This parameter doesn't say what type of powertrain we have. EV, ICE, HEV. Okay. And this vehicle, mass, everything has to achieve this performance.
Yes.
In order to meet that, this is the physical parameter it needs.
Yes.
That is the power, torque, speed. This is the need at the powertrain. Okay.
Yes,
How that get designed or delivered from the powertrain is second part.
Okay.
That is the back end. That is the back end. So you can get this power using a single E machine or a pure ICE or a hybrid. But this net value should be met to meet this drive performance.
Okay, sir. I got that, sir. Sir, and coming to this, the second question I have, sir. regarding when you are doing motor selection, sir, like when we are talking about motor selection, sir, currently, currently what motors are actually used mostly, sir, for mid-range vehicles, not bus level? Probably like cars and all, sir. What is the most commonly used motor, sir, right now?
Motors commonly used is two types. One
Okay,
is
sir.
induction motor and other one is a permanent magnet synchronous machine.
PMSM
Yes,
and yeah, induction motors.
induction
Yes.
motor. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Sir, are DC motors like BLDC motors, PMDC motors, what we call, are they coming in like in a very big way? Because right now I have also seen, I've been studying a few, sir. I'm also
Hmm.
seeing like a controller, motor controller. I was trying to do some motor controlling, sir. So I'm also noticing only PMSM and induction motor, but PMDC motors, are they trying, sir?
Yeah, see, BLDC motor, the challenge or the limitation what we have is the control function. The
Okay,
vector
okay, sir.
controller and the response controlling and the kind of sensitivity using
Okay, sir.
getting that the torque, the right torque at the wheels is a little challenging with the DC motor,
Okay, sir.
and it is more flexible or more comfort with an AC machine. That's why most of the we go with AC
But basically, that is because of the control only, no, sir. That is what.
control,
Yes.
control only. Yeah, yeah.
Sir, and batteries, now everybody is using lithium now, sir, for vehicles, for
Hmm.
lithium. Yes, sir. Sir, can you show that battery slide? That is the, you had the two slides after this, two third slide after
Yeah, yeah,
this.
yeah. No, that is only a typical battery model.
Yes, sir. This also is like a generic one that you showed.
Correct, correct. Yeah.
Sir, is this the model that people are using mostly? Because now we have a lot of models.
No,
Actually, for
this is not a
vehicles,
only model. This is a typical, this is a representation to say how a model builds and what are all the different methods we have.
okay, sir. Okay, right, sir. Sir, thank you
Yeah,
so
but
much.
chemistry, see, typically a lithium chemistry could be the same. If you're using a lithium battery, the
Yes, sir.
chemistry is universally constant.
Yes, sir.
Okay, but
Yes,
if
sir.
you talk about the battery, that battery has different cells. Each cell we don't know how that combined. It is a parallel or a series parallel.
Yes.
Everything includes to complete a battery model.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That is true, sir.
Yeah.
Right, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, sir. You've given us a lot of information, sir. And I also, sir, I noticed the reference that you mentioned in all of these slides, sir. Is that a document like for available for us, or is it company specifics or Bosch? You cannot circulate it.
Which one, madam?
So the reference that I think there is a reference that you have quoted. Is that a white paper that you have written for the company or no, sir? At the bottom of the slide, each slide. So is that a
Okay,
reference
okay.
paper that you are quoting
No,
or?
no, this is only a kind of an header, what we use
Okay, okay,
internally.
sir.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay, right, sir. Fine, sir. I thought it was a document reference.
No, no,
That's why.
no. See, you can see most of the content what I
Yes.
discuss is been published already. I made
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
few papers. You
Right.
can Google it. You can get the papers.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Thanks, thanks, man. So, any other specific part questions? Uh, so, any other questions from the audience?
Sir, is there a contact information, your contact information in case if we can get in touch with you at some point, sir?
Yeah, madam, you can reach me over my my email ID.
Yes, sir. So can you show that screen or something where you have that information? If you have?
Okay.
Sir, or you can just type it out in the chat box, sir. That is also fine.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm sharing my front screen. I think you can copy my email ID.
So, thank you.
Yeah. Kumarvel, I think I have no other queries, questions, or points to discuss here, right? You can conclude.
Okay, sir.
Or any other.
Sir, I am Dr. Jnanamurthy. My question is, the development of Bosch, the company to develop any motor or any new system for the electrical vehicles, sir? For example, Bosch is an injector is famous. Like that, Bosch, any electrical vehicle they contributed in that one?
Yeah. See, all these components, whatever this picture, it's all from Bosch product.
Okay.
These are all our Bosch product.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, we have motor, we have inverter, and DC is our own product. Now we have a product called an e-axle.
Okay. Battery also your own mixer? Battery.
No, battery we don't own, but we own this BMS part, battery management system.
Battery management system.
Yeah.
Okay.
But otherwise, all major products we develop.
You have developed the control system like that.
Yes. We develop all control systems. And if you see this real, so I will share another screen. If you see this real control logic will be totally different because the control philosophy or the control phenomena is totally different. So for an EV, it is like this.
Oh.
So you have a vehicle controller. So what Bosch developed, a motor controller we develop, and a battery controller. There is energy management system we develop. Charger also we are not getting into.
Your own Bosch.
Yeah.
So one more thing. What is the difference between the Tesla and your system? How it will be different, sir? Will be any changes is there?
No, Tesla is an OE.
Okay.
We are a component supplier.
Okay.
System supplier, yeah.
Okay.
Organization wise, that is the difference. They are OE and we are a system suppliers.
Okay.
And some components or some systems Tesla develops by its own, and few they get from a suppliers.
Okay.
But Bosch doesn't make any vehicle.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello, sir. One more thing. Pradeep Kumar has asked, what's the one good instruction that you would like to give to the students in behalf of the industry personals regarding the skill development in this field?
Okay. Okay. See, you mean for the students' perspective, right?
Yes, sir. He has asked.
See, one thing is what I can say is that this technology trend, the developments are happening on a daily basis. At least we can see a lot of new things are coming up. if you talk about any product, components or a system or challenges, what we see, there are a huge amount of upgradation or developments or releases keep coming. So from students' perspective, I typically suggest to keep them basically get update. So students can, if with their own interest, see, some students could be interested in a system, some students could be interested in a product, but let them has to explore basically. So the information is available in open source. There are a lot of paper getting released, journal papers, conference papers every day by global industries. Tesla, see, since you touch about Tesla, all patents are now available in open source. They don't keep any of the patent confidential. So like that, there are many things available in the open market or open source on for an EV or any new technologies. So from students' perspective, more than fundamental, fundamental theory is one thing, and also I suggest the students to keep them update on the current trends or current developments. So that will help them to get easy into the industry once they come in. They has to be updated basically. Hope I answered the question.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. On behalf of Department of Electrical Engineering and AICT, expresses its sincere gratitude to Dr. Nand Kumar for accepting our invitation to be a part of our online FTP and spending his valuable time and efforts in educating research scholars and students from various colleges about the fast charging challenges in EV. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thanks.